Hello guys. Recorded has started. Cool. Hi guys. Lots of things going on. Happy Friday. There's lots of stuff going on. And we have lots of announcements to make. Hello, there's a person. Oh yeah, I need to make sure I'm actually live on the app. Let me go on the app. Let me see. Yeah, so much stuff is going on. So first, yay, it's working. Hello, Anna. Thank you so much for liking it. Let me turn this down. Can I go upside down? Yes, I can. Oh my god. Hello, Virginia. Hello. I see you. Hi, guys. So, lots of stuff going on this week. First of all, I want to say this whole month is going to be a little bit crazy because behind me, I'm moving. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it during the workshop or not last month, the shadow work workshop, but I'm in the middle of moving. So, if you see crazy things like boxes and different beds and all that kind of stuff, it's because we moved out of my mother-in-law's house into where I work normally, and then we're going to move again, and I'll actually have an office. So I'm hoping by the time we get to the end of this month, I will actually be in an office, and then it'll be amazing. So, already apologize for that. And yes, for anybody that cares, I cut my hair. Yeah, I took my shadow work to a whole new level and chopped my hair off. So, first stream with super short hair. Woo. Alright, we are going over a bunch of stuff today because we're starting on new things. And it's all still going to be intuitively based. And we got a lot of new people in the group. We are officially over 100 people. We've been over 100 people since before the Shadow Work Workshop, but I thought it was good to mention it yesterday in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep. So, first off, hello, as I hit the cord. Hello, my name is Rachel Arazo. I am an intuitive tarot reader and intuitive tarot reading coach. And I'm a life coach, and I'm all kinds of things. I help people learn to read intuitively, which basically means without the book, and I make it fun and easy, and a lot of the things that I talk about are going to be like characters in movies, and making the cards really visual for you, because it's already a visual type of divination, so we're going to bump it up an extra level and make it even more visual. So, expect that from me. And this group is all about sharing, it's all about collaborating, you're going to learn all kinds of stuff, we're going to learn stuff about each other, it's going to be amazing. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. But this group is going to be amazing. So, I wanted to talk to you guys this week about breaking down archetypes. Because we see this all the time. We go to Barnes & Noble, or we go to Walmart, if your Walmart is lucky enough to sell cards, or we go on Amazon, or anywhere where we buy cards. And you walk in, you see the shelves, and it's covered in decks, and you're like, wait, over here I have the original Rider-Waite, and then over here I have one about voodoo and hoodoo, and then I have another one about the Necronomicon. I don't understand. Hi, Lynn! Hello! But every time you go on Google, there's some other definition of the devil from what you have. So if I were to look at a deck and I'm like, huh, this looks completely different from the Rider-Waite version that I see everywhere online, what the hell am I supposed to do? So, how am I supposed to read these decks differently? And from my experience, a lot of tarot readers shun decks because of this, like different kinds that vary from their system, because we have so many tarot systems. There's Marcel, there's the Thoth decks, there's, you know, Dreams of Gaia that has its own thing. There's all kinds of stuff. So, oh, Lynn says, oh my gosh, so true, so hard to know what to do. Joanna, hi Joanna! And it's so true. So that's the part that trips up a lot of new readers, because they get a deck and they're just like, ooh, it's pretty, I like it, and which is awesome because you're trusting your intuition, and your intuition is like, ooh, pretty deck, Night Veil, gimme. Which they have a Night Veil Tarot and I really want it. but it's not anything like you've seen before, so you're just like, how do I read this? And if you really break it down, there's a really simple way that you can do this, and we're going to do this all month. We're going to break down any deck that you use that is not traditional, we're going to break it down, and we're going to dissect it and how you can still make it work. And you can still read it intuitively and get some base answers from it, but still, you know, come up with your own style of reading and learn to trust yourself, you know? So, we're going to do that all month. And every week, we're going to go over a different way that you can. And at the end of this month, big announcement, we're going to have a series. It's called the Fool's Intuitive Intuitive Journey series. And it's going to take 3 days. It'll all be at noon Mountain Standard Time, so that's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Pacific. And it'll be from the 28th of November to the 30th. Let me get this link for you. We're going to get it. And we're going to go through all 3 days, 3 different decks. And I believe I already decided this. We're going to do the Dreams of Gaia. We're going to do the Enchanted World and the Gothic Horror Tarot, which is an indie deck from Etsy. I just have to officially ask hubby permission to let me use it. So we're going to go ahead and go through all 3 decks, and I picked these because the only one that's even close to the Rider-Waite system or something recognizable is the Gothic Horror one. All the other ones are way out there. So we're going to go over each one, and we're going to break down the Fool's Journey, all the major Arcana cards, and we're going to go through it intuitively, and we're going to come up meetings, and it's going to be awesome. And I encourage you to bring your deck along too. And we're going to figure it out. So, announcement out the way. We're going to spend today talking about breaking down archetypes. So, did you know that every card is based on an archetype? And if you're like, ooh, I don't know what an archetype is, it's most commonly called a stereotype. They're synonyms. So, if we look at literature, if we look at movies, plays, things like this, I'm a theater kid. I have a degree in theater with directing and characterization, so I'm going to talk about it a lot like that. When it comes through archetypes, we all have the stereotypical characters, and they all fit underneath a major arcana card. And if you think about it, an easy way to think of the major arcana and the minor arcana is the major is one stereotype, and then the minor arcana are if the major arcanas all had babies together. And it spreads into like this family tree of cards. Just to break it down really simple. So, archetypes are typical examples of people, places, things like that. And when we think of an archetype, it'll bring an image to mind of a certain situation we've been in, or a movie we've seen, or an action that we've seen taken place. And it makes it so much easier to read the cards because we have that visual. And as tarot is a visual divination, it really does help. So, for example, we take Shakespeare. Everybody knows Shakespeare. And we take Hamlet. And if you haven't ever actually heard of Hamlet, or heard of the play, or read it, or watched it, or anything, Hamlet is all about this prince whose father was killed, and his father's ghost comes back to talk to him. And he says, your uncle killed me, and now he's married your mother, and you need to go kill him for me. Do revenge for me. And the whole time, Hamlet is sitting there, it's bunches of soliloquies. And a soliloquy is when you're talking to yourself, but it's not internal, it's external, so the audience can hear you. So it's soliloquies, you're speaking out loud, to be or not to be. That's Hamlet. Literally, it's from the play. So he's talking to himself about whether he should murder his uncle or not, whether he should leave his mother behind, whether or not he should be with Ophelia, which is his soulmate. Hello, Danielle. Hello, Katrina. Yes, Cliff Notes. Yes, the Cliff Notes. He's doing all kinds of things, and he's just talking aloud about it, and he's digging deep inside of himself and trying to figure out what he should do. Now think for a second, if you could pick a major arcana card to be Hamlet, this guy who's by himself, drives himself insane trying to figure this out, what major arcana card would you pick? Let's see if anybody can pick the one I picked. And I have my tea. Bring your tea. Any guesses? Ah. No. Okay, no guesses. The Hermit is what screams to me. The Emperor too. Yeah, it can be the Emperor because he does take things into his own control. But the thing that stands out to me is Hamlet isolates himself. He doesn't tell anybody of his plan except for his friend who runs into the ghost at one point. He isolates himself from his soulmate and it drives her insane and she kills herself. He isolates himself from his mom and she ends up dying. Everybody ends up dead because it's a tragedy for Shakespeare. So it's like he pushes everybody to the side and it's all internal because of an external thing. So if you think of the Hermit, he's always hunched like this and he's always thinking, or he's always like, you know, looking into the darkness or something like that. It's all about the shadows and trying to figure out what truth is real. So that's why it's the Hermit for me. The Emperor can make sense because he's a prince, he's royalty. So it could work, he's trying to find new stability. So that is a good guess, Lynn. So it's like, we see this everywhere, even in our own everyday lives. We have emperors and empresses in our life as our parents. Sometimes they vary into a major arcana or a minor arcana, but we generally have those archetypes of what we believe a motherly figure and a fatherly figure is. We also see movies, whether, you know, no matter who the main characters are, of the lovers. And they're thwarted by the devil. I think of the black and white films where it's this guy with a twirly mustache and he ties one of the chicks to the cart, you know. Hi, Susie! I'm glad you came. So, if you take a look at anything you've read, anything you've watched, you can break down the characters through major arcana things. And it's very interesting as well if you just look at the basic plots for stuff. A lot of the times to incite conflict, it's a stranger comes to town. Or it's, you know, a person versus person. And the stranger coming to town one is always the fool. Because the fool wants to, you know, go off and explore new things through their own, you know, way. They're going to go explore a new town, so that causes conflict and creates a little story. So, the thing for major arcana cards then is we break it down and we look, okay, if we have a spread of 2 cards, what is the story happening here? What are the archetypes if we were just to look at these major arcana cards? And you really break it up and yeah, it makes it so much easier if you think of them as characters and not just, you know, keywords. Because you can look at the Fool and go, new beginnings, optimism, naivety, things like that. Or you can think of, I'm going on an adventure for The Hobbit or something. That's a classic Fool thing, you know? Does it make sense? Do you guys have questions? Let me grab cards. Yeah, because the biggest thing, I know at first when I became a reader, I got really tripped up over the major arcana cards. Because every time I saw one, I'm like, ooh, major life event, you know, choices, big things happening. And I'm just looking through for some major arcana here. So it's like, if you think of them more in a relatable kind of way, it doesn't make the reading as scary. And we have some new people in the group, and I really want to emphasize, well, not only new people in the group, but there are some people here that have never, like, they're not confident in their reading. And this is one way to build confidence over it, by breaking it down into something you can understand. Lynn says, keep going, I like this idea. Cool. So, we're going to, I went ahead and pulled out some of my major arcana for my Witch's Tarot. And we're going to break it down a little bit. just so you guys get some stuff. So, first two here, we have the Wheel of the Year. Blah! Picture. There we go. The Wheel of the Year. So, this is usually the Wheel of Fortune, right? What kind of character would come to mind for you for the Wheel of the Year? The one that pops in my head. I mention Avatar all the time. Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's a episode where he's being punished. Like, the main character is being punished because his past life killed the leader of this village. Because he was a tyrant. And he didn't actually kill him. It was just circumstance, like the cliff fell apart when she split the earth, and he fell. And so they blame him. And they want to punish him, and there's this wheel he has to spin, and that'll be his punishment. And at first he got boiled in oil, and that was his punishment, but people attacked the town. And they're like, save us! No, I'm supposed to be boiled in oil. They turn the wheel. Okay, community service, go save us. And he did. So, it's the Wheel of Fortune, or the Wheel of the Year in this case, to me always screams you have the power to turn the wheel of fate in your own way. You have the power to change your luck. If your luck is down, you can flip it. Hello, Jessica! So, that's just one instance that pops into my head where I think of this. Another thing that pops into my mind is Luck Be a Lady from Guys and Dolls, because I'm a musical buff. You know? And then if we were to pair it with Justice. So, Jessica says, hi, I wish I could stay, but it's crazy busy today. You're fine. There's gonna be, this replay will be up, and I'm gonna email it to everybody as well. So don't worry. No matter how busy you are, you'll always get a replay as long as you're a part of the Tarot and Tea list. Okay? So, we have Justice here. Justice, you know, if you go through keywords, it's balance and neutrality. I think of Athena, you know, mainly because I think of all the Greek plays that I had to read for theory classes, where Athena would intervene, and she would always be the judge. And she'd be like, okay, let's hear both sides of the case, and then I will decide, but my vote goes towards, it counts like as 20, and my vote is Zeus's vote, because I'm from his brain. Jessica, yay, I'll get to see it still. Yes, you will. And be sure to, if you have any comments about it, feel free to share it in the group. It's always welcome. So, it makes me think of Athena in those contexts, not just Athena as the goddess herself. So, it changes the character a little bit more. It could bring people to mind in everyday life that are neutral like this. So, all the judge shows that you see on TV in late afternoon, like Judge Judy, Judge Mathis, Judge Joe Brown, you know, People's Court, you see these neutral people. But it brings a different kind of neutrality, because you think of Athena, she's from Zeus's forehead, she's from masculine. She's from a masculine figure, and herself, she's a very masculine power, because in a lot of the Greek plays that she's a part of, she talks about how she sides with man and with logic and religious justice and things like that. She never sides with the women, you know. So, it's a masculine neutrality. She would be more likely to side with the emperor than she would with the empress, you know. So that's just, you know, how I would take it. And if you have takes on these cards too, put them in the comments. We can go ahead and talk about them. So, let's pick some other ones. I'll be a good tarot reader and shuffle this tiny little thing in my hand. Aha! Aha! So, okay, we have, there we go. We have the lovers, and then we have the emperor. So, if I were to look at this as a tarot spread, obviously, the emperor is looking at the lovers. Yeah? And then, in the lovers, you have this angel in the background, you know, angel in the background, giving divine blessing to these two people. Automatically a scene that pops in my head like this, for some reason, is the new movie Why Him, with James Franco. Hello, Adam. Welcome. And mainly because the father is on the sidelines and he's like, I'm protecting my domain, I'm a businessman, I've taken care of my family, you know, things like this. And yet I'm watching my daughter go be with somebody who's crazy, who I don't think is the ideal lover, you know? And then in the back is, I don't know, what's his name from Key and Peele. It's one of them. Peele. Can't remember his first name. So you have already a little story playing out right here. You have the fatherly figure obviously looking at these two and questioning whether or not it's a good idea. You know, and that's just from going from the archetype for each. We have the father, and then we have this two stupid lovers. One thing else that could work with this is Romeo and Juliet. You have Romeo and Juliet here, and this would be Romeo's cousin. Not because he's a father figure, because both of the father figures in the story are really stupid. But it's more he's the stance of, are you sure this is a good idea? He's like the King of Swords, but enhanced. No, the friar, then, could also be the emperor in this case. That helps Romeo and Juliet throughout the entire play and gives him sanctuary and things like that. It could easily be this, like, are you sure? Okay. I have stability here with my church, and I will provide as much as I can. He does, he gives all kinds of resources, and he's the voice of reason at the end of the play when the lovers are dead. You know? So that's just, you know, a couple of examples there. And it makes it super easy to break it down more. Because can you guys think of any movies or plays or books even where you have a major Arcana card playing? Because one book that comes to mind for me is River Rising by Dorothy Garlock. The nurse in there screams strength to me because she is endlessly patient with everybody. She goes to this tiny little small-minded town and she has to take care of all these, you know, drunks and has to deal with, you know, this guy who turns her into the lovers, who's grins like a jackass eating strawberries. Best line ever. The devil! Ooh! The devil for this deck is the shadow side. So, if we were to see the devil in an actual, while I look for it, if we were to see the devil in an actual movie, ooh, usually the devil is the antagonist, right? So, but the antagonist doesn't mean he's the bad guy. He would just be, you know, the opposing force. Ah. Yeah, the devil for this deck is the shadow side. So it's got this Grim Reaper chasing after these two people that are hiding. But it's, I mentioned this during the Shadow Work Workshop and last month when we went over these cards, that this deck's version of it is more, you're running from your addiction. You're running from the truth you don't want to face. So, I'm trying to think of an example. It could very well be, new Guardians of the Galaxy 2 movie. Okay? If anybody's seen it. I'm sorry if you haven't. Spoilers. You can skip ahead. So, the new movie. Chris Pratt, I believe it's Chris Pratt, finds out about his father and who he actually is in his relationship with his mother. And then the entire time Gamora's telling him, I don't like something about the situation, it's not good, I'm not caring for this. Hello, Shivali. Hi. So, this whole time it's nagging in the back of your mind, and as the audience we're sitting there, and it's called dramatic irony, we're paying attention to everything on the scene because we can see everything that the characters might not. So we're thinking, yeah, there's something off about this guy because he's way too happy-go-lucky about this. You know? And then we find out that his dad killed his mother. He put the cancer in her body that killed her. And Chris Pratt, you know, you'd expect him to run. But no, he just shoots him in the face a bunch of times. He's like, you killed my mother. Probably the most honest reaction ever from hearing something like that. But at first he was running away from his addiction, and he felt obligated to, I need to build a relationship with this person. And then he found out the true side of the addiction. So at first he was the person standing there in chains. You know, how it's always a chain looped around the neck for the traditional devil card, and it's attached to the throne. Even though you can leave at any time and take the chains off. Because you're like, I'm obligated to be here because you're a kinvote to me. Like, you gave me the seed that made me who I am. But then he realized the real face of, you know, the bad guy in this situation, which is the devil, and he took it off and then, you know, ended up killing him at the end of it. So that's one example. See, the devil, when it comes to putting it into a perspective for yourself, can come in so many forms, and that's also the problem with breaking down the archetypes just into people and scenes for tarot, because they can be ideas, they can be situations. So like, you can have a situation that's very much the Fool, but it's not a person, it's a situation. Just like you can have a situation that you feel tied to, like the devil. You know? So if you have a movie, I can't think of one at the moment, that you are tied to, like this person is tied to their job. Ah, the producers. Here's an idea. Matthew Broderick felt tied to his job as an accountant. And they have the whole song, Unhappy. They have the whole song talking about how he's unhappy and he wants to be a producer. And it's all very monotonous, and everybody there feels chained to the job. But then he stands up, slips off the chain, says fuck you to the devil, and walks out. And he goes and he becomes a producer. So that is one way to take it. You know, does that make sense? Do you guys have questions? Make sure I'm not just rambling and and you guys don't understand. Okay. Yeah, and the whole thing with this is it's supposed to be fun. You know, excuse my little one in the background. But it's just supposed to be a fun, uplifting experience. And reading intuitively, a lot of people are like, oh, it's too hard, I don't know how to tap into my intuition, and this is a really easy way to do it. Just find images for yourself where you've seen a major arcana character. And work with it. You know? And really make it your own. So let's see. If we can come up with another one. Okay, Temperance is a hard one. Because Temperance, you know, it's kind of like the Star. I have troubles with this card. It's kind of like the Star, but not to that level of emotional healing, because this comes before the Devil. And I believe it follows Death. I'm not sure. So, Temperance, it's finding balance, but also finding emotional healing, and it's sunshine and rainbows. It's not as dreary as the Star is, because there's literally a sunshine and a rainbow, and there's an angel there. So, I guess a funny one for Temperance, for the angel of a situation, someone who brings relief to you and teaches you a lesson. It was an 80s movie where these guys make a woman out of a Barbie doll. Mad Science. There we go. Lynn says, Temperance is so hard and so is the Hanging Man. I dread getting the Hanging Man. We can go over the Hanging Man. Yeah, so I think of Mad Science because, you know, mixing in concoctions and things. So throughout the entire movie, as silly as it is, because it's about, you know, prepubescence and it's got a very young Robert Downey Jr. in it, at the same time, this creature that they made helps them discover more about themselves. It makes the main character more confident. It makes him, you know, realize he doesn't have to create a woman on himself. He just needs to, you know, be himself, and he'll be just fine. Another idea for Temperance that just popped into my head, Frankenstein could easily be Temperance, mainly because he felt this desire to create life, and his way of emotional healing was destroying the monster, and it never was completed, you know? Because if you actually go along with the book Frankenstein, not any other version where he destroys the monster, you know, Frankenstein dies. He freezes on a ship after he's been chasing the monster for months. And the monster finds him, and he cries because he's the only person who knew how to create life. And he promised he would, and he didn't. So it's like this weird catharsis of another abomination won't be made, but at the same time you balance it out with, now this poor creature's alone. But this poor creature committed murder. So it's like this endless back and forth. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Okay, and the Hanged Man. When it comes to the Hanged Man, for me, you really need to not do anything. Just chill. Just hang out. So, the first one that popped in my head was Toulouse from Moulin Rouge with Ewan McGregor, and that is a poor example of the Hanged Man because he's constantly telling him to do things. Hanged Man. Phantom in Phantom of the Opera. It could work. Like, follow me on this for a second. Because even though, yes, he's doing things, he lies in wait. He has these sections of Chariot and being methodical and planning, and then he has these sections of waiting because he's already got everything planned out. So, for example, after he takes Christine, he sends out all the letters, getting rid of Carlotta as the lead and telling the managers that they need to mind their own shit and give him his money, tells Raul to leave Christine alone. You know, he's already got these things in motion, so he lies in wait. That whole section between the first and second act, when he's not around and they're singing about, yay, he's not here anymore, but he was really lying in wait making an opera. He has his things of the Hanged Man, where he's just chilling. And he's waiting because he's like, I'm not going to stress about it, because everybody else is going to do everything for me. So, getting Christine to go to the graveyard, he laid in wait for that, because he knew she was coming. All he had to do was chill in a mausoleum for a little bit. And he knew she was going to be there. You know? Maybe a stretch. Because it's kind of a trade-off of two different major Arcana moments. And then he turns into this sad moment of the star after the tower. You know, because the chandelier crashes, the opera house burns down, and he leaves. And it's the star for him because he realizes Christine will never be with him. You know? And I just have images of Gerard Butler running through my head right now. So, so it's things like that where you just bring these ideas to mind, and it can trade off. A character can change major arcana types. A stereotype for actors, you can go from being the motherly character to being a vixen. You can go from being a hobo to being an emperor. There's a transition, and it's called a character arc. We see this in books and comic books and movies and all kinds of stuff. It's called a character arc. So sometimes in a situation, if you pull two cards, you know, you got the Chariot and Star here. So at first you may be the Chariot and you're moving fast, but then something like the Tower happens, because you're going through the Fool's journey. The Chariot comes before the Star. So you're going through it and something bad happens and you end up having to do some emotional healing at the end of it. You've come out a different person than you did at the beginning, you know? 2 thumbs up. Thank you, Lynn. So yeah, and that's just the point behind today. Get creative with your deck. I invite you to go sit down with your deck, and if you have a tarot journal, which I hope you do, I have a tarot journal, I invite you to sit down and look through your major arcana and see, you know, the progress. Relate the characters to the things that you watch, or even a music video for songs that you like. Relate the characters and it'll make it so much easier for you. And it'll make everything awesome. I can probably share my playlist that I have for the major arcana. I'll share it sometime this month for you guys. So yeah, do you guys have any questions? And again, we're having the Fool's Intuitive Journey series. It'll be the 28th through the 30th. I have the sign up right there. I'm going to go make the event in a second. Yeah, and it'll be 3 days of going through the Fool's Journey, and it's going to be fun. It'll be with 3 very different decks. We're not doing anything traditional here. And it's going to be amazing.